Well, the new book out today from one of the most prominent Indigenous leaders in the country hopes to flip the script by breaking the mindset of res culture. And the true change can be achieved once Indigenous communities can become self-sufficient. Clarence Louie is the chief of the Soyuz Indian Band of the Okanagan and author of Res Rules, My Indictment of Canada's and America's Racism Against Indigenous Peoples. Chief Clarence joins us live this morning from British Columbia. Chief, it's great to have you on the program today. There is so much to get into in our time. So let's talk about your book. The title has the word indictment in it. Can you tell us more about the indictment you're presenting?
Well, my book is all about the racist history of which Canada and the United States was founded on, because you really look at how these two countries came to be. Of course, they came to be on stolen Indian land, Native land, First Nation land. They came to be on broken treaties, hundreds and hundreds of broken treaties, and land rip-offs and genocidal practices against the First Nations people of this country.
And so, you talk about that, but you also talk about the history, your own history, and what you've managed to accomplish as a chief of your band there. And it's a remarkable where you've taken your band from almost this dire poverty into incredible progress. What's the cuban for you success-wise in doing that and turning things around?
Well, what I learned many years ago going to school on successful First Nations on both sides of the border, you have to remember the Soyuz Indian Band, we're a cross-border tribe. Half of our territory and our people got put on a reservation in Washington State. The rest of my people are in 7 Okanagan reserves on this side of the border. All the First Nations on both sides of the border, all the tribes that are breaking away from the cycle of dependency and poverty that the United States and the Canadian government purposely did on purpose to kick us off our economic course and to make us beggars in our own territory and country, was to have an economic focus, was to get back to that original treaty relationship, which was based on business. Back then it was called the fur trade. It's still business, it's still commerce. Our people were the first entrepreneurs of these lands. Archaeological evidence proves that our people had trade routes between bands, between nations and tribes that existed for thousands of miles. We have to get back to that economic focus.
So that blueprint that you're talking about there, has it been tried elsewhere across Canada or America, for example? And what is it that you think you can do to sort of help move things along and help other bands, other reservations, other life in Canada? We've seen boil water advisories, severe poverty, all the things that you're talking about in your book. How can you take what you've learned and what you've done and help elsewhere?
Well, yes, there's a lot of negative stuff still happening on First Nation communities, but also on the other side of the scale, which is not reported as much, there are a lot of prosperous bands and tribes. There are a lot of bands that can put up their hands and say, we're involved with corporate Canada or corporate America, and we're making millions and tens and hundreds of millions of dollars on our First Nation Indian reserves. Well, Soyuz Indian Band is not the only one. There are many First Nations in this country that have gotten back on their economic course, that are doing good business, are becoming more business-minded, and have an economic focus, and are creating jobs for both natives and non-natives. It makes no sense to have a poor neighbor. In Canada, in corporate America, corporate Canada is starting to realize, hey, we have to engage economically with the First Nations in our territories where we want to do business.
And Chief Clarence, from the corporate side to the political side, how do you assess where Canada is right now? Truth and Reconciliation, we had the first National Day of Observance back at the end of September. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, a lot of people we've spoken to on this program, Indigenous Canadians have said, a lot of talk, maybe not enough action here. What's your assessment of currently the state of the federal government and Justin Trudeau's leadership on these issues?
There are steps being taken in the right direction, but there has to be more economic focus. There's still too much social spending. The $8 billion, there's still 95% social spending and only 5% economic development funding. That's a failed formula. It always has been a failed formula. We've always been telling the federal government we need more money for economic development. In many of the projects that we've done here on the Soyuz Indian Band, we needed that seed money from the very few economic development programs that the federal government has, and that's how we got many of our projects off the drawing board.
Okay, Chief Clarence Louie, it's a fascinating book, Res Rules. That's the book he's just authored. It pulls no punches, no holds barred, but it's a great, honest assessment of the situation. Appreciate your time here on CB24 Breakfast. Thank you.
Thank you.